From the moment Brian met Nicole, she was a tempest of desire, a woman who turned every room into her personal stage. Her energy was magnetic, intoxicating, pulling him into a whirlwind of passion, so intense it felt like an addiction. They were the kind of couple who couldn't keep their hands off each other, a love built on whispered confessions in dimly lit bedrooms, stolen kisses in crowded places, and nights so fevered they blurred into dawn. Nicole had an insatiable appetite, a craving for spontaneity, and a way of making even the mundane feel like an erotic adventure. There was a time when Brian would come home to find her waiting, draped in silk, a mischievous smirk on her lips, her body already humming with anticipation. She used to worship him with every touch, every arch of her back, every sigh that slipped past her lips. But lately, the woman who once moaned his name with reckless abandon had started pulling away, replacing their intimacy with cold, dismissive smiles and empty promises of later. The spark was flickering, but Brian didn't yet realize it wasn't just fading. Nicole was already searching for her next fire to set. It started with small things: missed calls, unanswered texts, vague explanations that left more questions than answers. Nicole had always been a social butterfly, but lately, she seemed more like a shadow, slipping in and out of their home as if she had somewhere more important to be. The woman who used to wait for Brian at the door with a slow, teasing kiss now barely looked up from her phone when he walked in. At first, he convinced himself he was imagining it. She was just busy, caught up in work, tired. But the late nights started piling up. Nights where she would come home with a faint scent of perfume that wasn't hers, a new shade of lipstick smeared at the corner of her mouth, subtle, almost unnoticeable, but Brian noticed. He always noticed. When he asked, she laughed it off, her voice coated in honeyed indifference. "Ruby and I went out, babe. You know how she is. One drink turns into 5. It should have been enough to soothe him, to erase the gnawing ache in his gut. But then there were the glances, the way Nicole would smirk at her phone, biting her lip in that telltale way. The way her fingers danced over the screen like she was whispering secrets through her touch. Brian knew that look. It was the same way she used to look at him when she was deep in desire, when her thoughts were soaked in sin. But now it wasn't for him. He tried to tell himself it was nothing, that he was reading too much into the little fractures forming between them. But in his heart, he knew the woman who once burned for him was already kindling another fire somewhere else. The truth had a way of lingering in the air, thick and undeniable, even when unspoken. Brian could feel it, creeping into the spaces between them, settling into the silence where their laughter used to be. Nicole had always been a master of seduction, a woman who knew exactly how to wield her beauty like a weapon, but now it wasn't aimed at him. It was subtle at first, the way she would turn away from his touch, the way she no longer melted against him when he pulled her close. One night, as he lay in bed beside her, his arm draped over her waist, he felt her body tense beneath his touch. A time existed when her skin would have shivered with anticipation, when she would have turned to him with eyes darkened by need. But tonight she was distant, cold, as if his hands were a foreign thing, as if they no longer belonged on her. Then there was the moment that confirmed everything. Brian had been in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of whiskey, when Nicole's phone lit up on the counter. He wasn't the kind of man to snoop, but when the name flashed across the screen, something inside him snapped. Carter, a name he had never heard, a name that shouldn't have been there. And then the message. Last night was unforgettable. Can't stop thinking about you. The glass in his hand trembled, ice clinking against the sides. But Brian didn't move, didn't breathe. Nicole walked in at that exact moment, her eyes flicking from his face to the phone. And in that second, just that fleeting moment, he saw it. The guilt, the fear, the realization that she had been caught. Brian had always believed that if a storm was coming, he'd feel it in the air first. Some kind of instinct, a warning whisper before the wreckage. But Nicole's betrayal wasn't a storm. It was a silent earthquake, shaking the foundation of everything he thought was solid beneath him. The moment her eyes flicked to the phone screen, he saw it. That microsecond of panic before she masked it with indifference. Too late, Nicole. The damage was already done. She reached for the phone, too slow to be casual, too fast to be innocent. Brian took a slow sip of his whiskey, the burn of it nothing compared to the fire raging in his chest. He could have confronted her right then and there, thrown the phone at her feet, demanded the truth. But no, he wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Instead, he played along. Let her think she was still in control. "You're home early," she said, her voice light, feigning normalcy. She tucked her hair behind her ear, the same ear where diamond studs he had bought her glinted under the kitchen light. She was good at lying, but not good enough. "Yeah," Brian murmured, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. His eyes never left her. "Thought I'd surprise you." Nicole smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She leaned against the counter, phone clutched tight in her fingers. Her body was in their kitchen, but her mind was somewhere else, someone else. And Brian? He let the moment stretch between them, let her twist in the silence. Because if Nicole thought she was playing a game, she had no idea that Brian had just flipped the board. Brian had never been a man who believed in premonitions. But the moment Nicole handed him the envelope, a strange sense of déjà vu settled over him. He already knew what was inside. He had seen this moment coming from miles away, and yet, watching her stand there, so composed, so smug, made his blood simmer with something close to amusement. She exhaled, like she had been waiting for this, like she had rehearsed it. "We both know this isn't working." Brian leaned back in his chair, fingertips tracing the rim of his glass, watching her as if she were nothing more than a poorly acted performance. "And by this, you mean our marriage? Or the fact that you couldn't keep your legs closed long enough to remember what loyalty looks like?" Nicole flinched, just barely, but recovered quickly. "That's not fair." "No." He arched a brow. "Let me guess. It's not what it looks like." She hesitated, her polished confidence cracking. But instead of backtracking, she squared her shoulders, flipped her hair, and met his gaze. "You're too boring, Brian." Her voice carried a quiet finality. "I need more." There it was, the nail in the coffin. Brian exhaled through his nose, setting the glass down with a soft clink. He wanted to laugh, truly. She had no idea. She thought she had already won. Without a word, he slid the papers from the envelope, flipping through them, his expression unreadable. And then he saw it. Her mistake. His smirk was slow, deliberate. "You really should have read the fine print, Nicole." Her confident mask wavered. And in that moment, he knew she had just lost everything. Nicole had spent the past week reveling in what she thought was her victory. She strutted through the house like she already owned half of everything, blissfully unaware that her entire fantasy was on borrowed time. She had been careless, charging lavish shopping sprees to her card, booking a luxury weekend getaway with her friends, indulging in imported wine and high-end spa treatments like she was already cashing in on her imagined payday. Brian watched it all with quiet amusement. She still hadn't read the prenup. It wasn't until the day she met with her lawyer that reality came crashing down around her. Nicole had waltzed into the meeting, draped in designer confidence, fully expecting to be handed her golden parachute. She had already told her friends she'd be comfortable post-divorce. She imagined walking away with a hefty alimony, the house, maybe even the car. But when her lawyer, an older man with a tight-lipped frown, adjusted his glasses and tapped a specific section of the contract, her world tilted. "Nicole," he said slowly, as if he already anticipated the outburst that would follow. "This prenup, it's airtight." Her lips parted. "What?" He exhaled, turning the document toward her. "Clause 14b. If you initiate the divorce without cause, you waive your right to any alimony or financial compensation beyond jointly owned assets." Nicole's manicured nails curled into the fabric of her dress. Her throat went dry. That can't be right." Her lawyer's gaze was unwavering. "It's binding, Nicole. And now, since the petition has been filed, it's too late to retract." It was over. The future she had pictured, the life she thought she was about to upgrade to, shattered like glass. For the first time, Nicole felt fear. Nicole sat frozen, her pulse hammering against her ribs as the weight of her lawyer's words settled over her like a lead blanket. No alimony, no financial settlement, no lavish new life. Just nothing. Her hands trembled as she clutched the prenup, scanning the words like she could somehow will them to change. But the ink was dry. The contract was ironclad, and the divorce petition, already filed. Her breath hitched as she whispered, "There must be a way around this." Her lawyer adjusted his glasses, his patience wearing thin. "Nicole, if you fight this in court, you'll lose. There's no loophole." He leaned forward, voice dropping to a firm but sympathetic tone. "And if you challenge the prenup and fail, you'll be responsible for Brian's legal fees as well." She felt the ground beneath her crack open. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. In her mind, she had already won. She had envisioned herself walking away victorious, the envy of her friends, living in a high-rise penthouse, sipping champagne on Brian's dime. But now she was the one left scrambling. Desperation clawed at her throat. She reached for her phone, her perfectly polished nails clicking against the screen as she typed out a message. Brian, we need to talk. I think there's been a mistake. Call me back, please. She sent it. Then she waited. 5 minutes. 10. 30. Nothing. Brian wasn't playing along. The second voicemail was less composed. Brian, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't fair. You can't just do this to me. Still, no response. And that's when the panic truly set in. For the first time in her life, Nicole realized she wasn't in control anymore. Nicole had always been the one to turn heads when she entered a room, commanding attention with an effortless confidence that bordered on arrogance. But now, as she stood outside Brian's door, shivering under the dim porch light, that confidence was nowhere to be found. Her makeup, usually pristine, was slightly smudged, and her designer coat, once a symbol of luxury, now hung off her frame like a misplaced costume. She looked smaller somehow, as if the weight of her own choices had finally settled onto her shoulders. She knocked twice, her breath uneven. The door creaked open, and there he was, Brian, standing tall, arms crossed over his chest, expression unreadable. Brian, she started, voice laced with a forced softness. Please, can we talk? He said nothing at first, simply watching her, letting her squirm, letting the silence stretch into something thick and suffocating. Then, finally, he leaned against the frame and exhaled. Talk about what, Nicole? His tone was cool, detached. How you tried to cash out on a life you never earned. Or how you only regret it now that you're the one left with nothing. Her lower lip trembled. I messed up. He let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. Yeah, you did. Desperation flickered in her eyes. I don't have anywhere else to go. Brian held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, he murmured. I know. Then, with deliberate finality, he shut the door in her face. 2 days had passed since Brian shut the door on Nicole, and in that time, she had unraveled completely. The woman who once strutted through life with the certainty of someone always landing on her feet had finally stumbled hard. Word had spread fast. The friends who once rallied behind her, praising her for her upgrade, had gone silent. Ruby, her biggest cheerleader, had stopped answering calls. The guy she flirted with before the divorce had vanished, along with any potential safety net she thought she had. Nicole was alone, and worse, she was broke. That evening, Brian's phone buzzed. Nicole. He almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the best of him. Brian. Her voice was raw, stripped of its usual smugness. Please, I need to talk. He swirled the drink in his hand, smirking at the desperation in her tone. We already talked, Nicole. A shaky breath. I made a mistake. He leaned back, letting her words hang between them. No, Nicole, he finally said, voice steady. You made a choice, and now you get to live with it. Before she could respond, he hung up, draining the last of his drink with the satisfaction of a man who had truly moved on. Life is all about choices, and every decision we make comes with consequences. In today's world, where instant gratification and fleeting desires often overshadow commitment and integrity, it's crucial to remember that relationships, like success, require effort, loyalty, and mutual respect. The story of Brian and Nicole serves as a reminder that chasing superficial excitement over genuine connection can lead to empty regrets. Whether in love, business, or friendships, always think long-term. Stay true to yourself. Invest in people who truly value you, and never let temporary thrills blind you from what really matters: stability, trust, and self-respect.